Hello, and welcome to episode 27 of the Brain Cancer Podcast. As usual, before we get going today, I want to say thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to tune in and listen to the show. It really means a lot to me. In this episode, I do want to recap some of the March news, since many people seem to have liked the earlier February recap episode that I did, and I want to keep doing these. The first half of March did not seem to have a whole lot of news coming out in the brain cancer world, but the second half certainly did, and I want to cover a few articles that I happened to see, and one of which is a local clinical trial, local being here in Boston. I want to start off with this clinical trial, which is a cooperation between the University of Cincinnati and the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute here in Boston, both of which are great hospitals, well respected in the brain cancer and overall oncology world. This particular trial is a dual approach, which is going to use an investigational drug in combination with Libtayo or Libtayo. I'm not really sure which is the correct way to say it, but I'll just call it Libtayo. This is a clinical trial specifically for glioblastoma. I will read a section of the article here. I will give a quick recap of what these two drugs are. Providers from the University of Cincinnati Health and Dana-Farber Cancer Institute are collaborating on a phase 1 trial investigating the appropriate dosing levels and effect of Libtayo combined with the investigational drug ASP8374, both in patients whose disease has recurred after initial treatment, as well as those who have not yet received surgery. Enrolled patients must be 18 years old, have a grade 4 disease. Patients with a grade 3 recurrent disease will only be enrolled onto the first portion of the trial. Have previously received at least radiotherapy and be at their first or second relapse. Of note, the study authors have defined a relapse as the progression of disease following an initial therapy of radiation with or without chemotherapy. In patients who received therapy for a low-grade glioma, a diagnosis of a high-grade glioma during surgery will be considered the first relapse. So if you were initially diagnosed with a lower-grade glioma and it progressed to a grade 3 or a grade 4, then you could possibly qualify for this trial. Libtayo is a prescription medicine used to treat people with a type of lung cancer called non-small cell lung cancer. Libtayo may be used as your first treatment when your lung cancer has not spread outside of your chest, and you cannot have surgery or chemotherapy with radiation, or your lung cancer has spread to other areas of your body, and your tumor tests positive for high PD-L1, and your tumor does not have an abnormal EGFR, ALK, or ROS1 gene. So this is an approved medication, but they are using it in a clinical trial for studying glioblastoma, which in my case, I did a clinical trial for durvalumab, which is also used in non-small cell lung cancer. In combination, they will be using ASP8374, which is an immune checkpoint inhibitor. There's also a phase 1 study going on right now to evaluate the tolerability and safety profile and to characterize the pharmacokinetic profile of this medicine in Japanese patients with locally advanced or unresectable or metastatic solid tumors. So this is a two-pronged approach, which is using two different types of immunotherapies in combination to see how they can treat and attack glioblastoma cancer cells. As we know, these personalized treatments are really the future of brain cancer treatment. It really is about finding the combinations that work for individual people And like I had said in the last episode, we're looking at more and more options now than we have ever had before. Even though this is just a phase 1 trial, if it shows promise, then it will progress to phase 2, phase 3, and if it is effective, it can eventually be approved to treat glioblastoma patients. Up next, I want to talk about this new clinical trial, which has just started at a cancer center in New Jersey at the Hackensack University Medical Center, New Jersey's top-ranked cancer center, according to U.S. News and World Report. This press release was only put out on March 28th, so it is very recent, and they had announced that it has treated the first patient in the country with DSP-0390, an investigational new drug for relapsed glioblastoma and other anaplastic gliomas. Much like last episode, we know that as of 2021, we will not be using the term anaplastic anymore in grading our tumors, but I'm sure that they know exactly who qualifies and who does not qualify based on their pathology. I would hope they would. DSP 0390 is an investigational new agent developed by Cambridge, Massachusetts-based Sumitomo Dainippon Pharma Oncology. Is an inhibitor of emopamil binding protein, or EPB, a molecule in cholesterol biosynthesis. DSP 0390 has not been approved by the FDA, nor has its safety and efficacy been established. Quote, "Our bodies need cholesterol to build healthy cells, and for those cells to signal one another," said the medical director of neuro-oncology. But GBM cells can force the production of cholesterol into overdrive, leading to tumor growth, and blocking EPB may inhibit this growth. This multi-center global phase 1/2 study is planned to enroll 70 patients at 5 brain tumor centers in the US and Japan. I think this is a very interesting study, and we do know that glioblastomas in particular are almost addicted to cholesterol. And if we can use a new therapy to exploit that, then we have potentially a new treatment that we can combine with other immunotherapies or the standard of care. Finally, I want to talk about something which has gone back and forth for over 20 years now, and there are 2 different studies that I'm looking at, which both have to do with cell phone use and the risk of tumors from using cell phones. This has been a topic for well over 20 years, with some people saying it does increase your risk, while others have said no, it does not increase your risk. I will start off with a study from the UC Berkeley School of Public Health, Korea's National Cancer Center, and the Seoul National University. They found evidence that heavier cell phone use is associated with an increased risk in tumors, primarily brain tumors. According to the analysis, the use of cell phone for more than 1,000 hours, or about 17 minutes a day, for a decade, significantly increased the risk of tumors. In the individual studies that were analyzed, individuals who used cell phones for over a decade had slightly elevated tumor risk over those who had used cell phones for less than 5 years. Meanwhile, Oxford University's Population Health Department has again brought the discussion of mobile phones into the public sphere. The study of whether mobile phones can cause cancer spans 20 years of medical data and involved 770,000 women. Participants answered questions about their daily mobile phone usage in 2001, and then half of those answered similar questions a decade later. Then, over 14 years, researchers analyzed the medical records of all participants. The research paper aimed to find a correlation between mobile phone use and various brain tumors like glaucoma, acoustic neuromas, meningiomas, and pituitary gland tumors. The result of the 20-year study: mobile phone users are not at an increased risk of brain tumors. The lead researcher from the International Agency for Research on Cancer explains, quote, "For ordinary use, I think we have strong convincing evidence that mobile phone use doesn't cause problems, while for the smaller group of people with very heavy use, we would give some precautionary advice. But overall, we have the situation pretty much under control," end quote. While researchers have, quote, "strong evidence to rule out the correlation, some participants did develop brain tumors during the 20 years. But the study quickly pointed out that since 3,268 incidents were registered, it only represents a 0.90% incident rate. To me, this comes back to correlation and causation. One study is saying one thing, while another says another. We do know that the phones that we're using right now are not emitting ionizing radiation, which can knock electrons out and potentially cause cancer. I don't think this debate will be settled anytime soon. Personally, I hardly ever talk on mine. Even when I was diagnosed in 2016, I would sleep and my phone would still be feet away from my head. I don't think that would have anything to do with it. Whatever you choose to believe is up to you, and both sides would have an argument. I don't know. I'm not sure that we will ever know. But it is interesting to think about, and hopefully future cell phone technology can become safer, and that we don't ever have to have this discussion again. That about wraps up the March news, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to give an update on my own personal situation. I had my MRI in the middle of last week. When I saw my doctor on Friday, which was 2 days after the scan, everything looks great. Everything is stable, no changes. I may be going to even 3-month scans, which is something that I've never had before. I think I'm okay doing every 3 months, but I'm certainly not comfortable with going to every 4. At least at this point, I don't want to go to every 4. I don't know how long my tumor was in there before I started really seeing symptoms and quickly spiraled in late August and September of that year. We do know how quickly glioblastoma can multiply and spread. And I think the every 2 or 3 month scans really help me, because I know that when it comes back, I'll have more options and I can have another surgery if I needed it, or do another round of chemo, whatever it might be. But in the end, I just want to have that peace of mind by knowing that every 3 months I can have this scan to make sure that my brain is still stable. Then again, it leads me to thinking about something that a lot of brain cancer patients like myself do. We're stuck living scan to scan. We live 2 months, we get the scanxiety, we have our scan, and then we go from there. And then we get another 2 months. We get another 2 months. And it is mentally taxing. So I do think going to every 3 months will be good for me. And I am hoping that my brain will stay in the state that it's in now. It's hard to explain, but we know that it far too often comes back. I don't think any of us are prepared for the day that it does come back. I remember when I was first told about my recurrence, we had been watching it for a little bit, and I was recommended to get the surgery. And a couple weeks later, I had it. I was back home, did my chemotherapy, and that ended in November of last year. I'm hoping that I won't have to do any more, as we all do. But it's not or will never be something that we can just be like, we're cured, we're done. A lot of brain cancer doesn't act that way. That brings me back to the importance of these clinical trials, and especially immunotherapy, which can train our immune system to be able to spot cancerous cells in the future and take care of them before they can multiply and spread around our brains. Even though it's been a few years now, I'm still kind of in the spot where I don't know what I should do, what I should do in the future. And it's difficult to just be able to essentially move on with your life. A brain cancer diagnosis changes literally everything. I have to consider my health care before I could even think about moving somewhere if I wanted to. I love being in Boston. That's not going to change. I love this city. And it has some of the best healthcare I could ever imagine. This place saved my life. I love the neighborhood that I live in, and I feel lucky to be here. But what if I want to move somewhere else? Or if I took a job somewhere else? I have to consider all of these things before I can even make any decisions. I'm not really sure if there's an answer for any of that. But sometimes I just use this podcast as a reason to talk as well, because I get your feedback and it really helps me too. I do think it is about time for me to wrap it up for today. I do want to say thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to listen, because it means the world to me. I've met so many amazing people. I've made lifelong friends. Doing this podcast has become one of my absolute favorite things to do. I love talking, and I just want to be a good support person for everybody. If you would like to follow the page on Facebook, where I post every single day, I try and post a photo and a little update. You can follow the page at facebook.com/braincancerpodcast. You can follow the page on Twitter at twitter.com/braincancerpod. You can email me anytime at braincancerpodcast@gmail.com. Make sure to like the podcast, subscribe, or whatever it is that you do on your podcast app, wherever you're listening from. That reminds me that it is amazing when I look at the statistics for the show and I see the variety of countries that people are listening from, and it blows my mind that there are people from so many different countries listening. And it really shows that brain cancer, it doesn't matter where you live, what you do, who you are, it just does its thing, and we have to be here for each other. If you want to come on the show and share your story, please let me know. We can do interviews over Zoom or Discord, whatever might be best for you. This is a show for me and for you. So never hesitate. And if you want to come on, the show is yours. Once again, thank you so much for the support. I will be doing another episode soon. I'm going to get this one edited, try and figure out which episode I want to do next. And until then, I hope you all have a great day or night, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.